Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning. Ruben might not be joining us this morning, or he might come in late. He let me know. So I'm going to get right into this. I always mess up my camera here. Okay, that's better. This morning I'm going to talk. I'm sorry. I'm going to talk about start my talk on business ethics in graphic design. And this has actually become one of my favorite courses here at Platt College because I think it's so important. And I've, as a business person myself, I have done a lot of research in this and experienced a lot of things. And I want to share some of those experiences with you. For those of you that are doing freelance work, that are not just freelance work, but even working for other companies. But I had a little conversation with Ruben after class and he was talking about starting a business, and so we started getting into that. And I said, just wait for the business ethics portion of this class, and I think you'll really maybe learn some things and be able to contribute some things. And so anyway, let's get right into this idea of ethics and ethics as it pertains particularly to graphic design. Now, there's business ethics for all businesses. It's, I mean, that's a major in college. And we're not here to talk about general business ethics. Well, a lot of these are general, but the ones that really pertain to graphic design, what you're going to be doing as a graphic designer, and how those ethics come into play. So let's define ethics. And let me just throw that out to you guys just right off the bat, just so that I can kind of get an idea of where your knowledge of ethics. What is ethics?
Um, is it having like morals and fundamentals to work?
Yes, yes, it is. Mm-hmm. That's a good way to kind of sum up all of ethics, I think, is kind of the morality of the business that we're in. Um, what's right and what's wrong. And, it's not a complex topic. Um, it's, it's basically pretty simple. I mean, what is acceptable standard practices in our business of graphic design? And we need to know this because what we don't want to do is, not follow acceptable practices of graphic design. And it's very easy to, slip into unethical business practices. Um, Let me give you a probably one of the most popular and not popular, but one of the most common ethical violations in graphic design, and that is um, charging more than the work that you put into it. Would you say that that's unethical?
Yeah.
Stephen, you don't do much of the comments and feedback here, but I'm going to ask you to chime in on this. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, it doesn't really seem right.
Doesn't seem right, right? That we would even think of doing that. And yet, when money is at hand, a lot of times, would you? Let me pose this question to both of you, in terms of this question, this topic of money. Would you return money to a client if it didn't take you as long as you quoted the job to be?
No.
No.
Okay, no. You would not return money to a client. Okay, and why
Yeah.
would that be?
Because it doesn't matter, creatively speaking, and as a graphic designer before.
Okay, and I'm sorry to interrupt you, Cindy, because I want to preface this by saying, if you said that it's unethical to charge more for work that you or charge you know charge more for work that didn't take you as much time, then why would it not be ethical or unethical to to do that? I don't know if I'm phrasing this right, but if it's unethical, in that sense, then why is it unethical? Why is it ethical in the other sense?
Because you charge a flat rate, and because even though it might have taken you 1 to 3 or 4 days,
Mm-hmm.
it was your creative outburst. Like sometimes your job might take 2 weeks, but
Mm-hmm.
sometimes the idea comes in 4 days. So
Mm-hmm.
that's a flat rate. And believe it or not, sometimes the creative side takes a long time, but 4 days makes sense sometimes. And then opposed to 2 weeks that would have taken you to, sometimes I think 2 weeks is kind of like you're walking around, you're drinking water, you don't know really what to do, right? But for the 4 days, you're putting hard and really putting all of your work into it and your soul and heart. That's why it's charged as a flat rate.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So
I
if you stated that at the beginning that this is based on a flat rate, then what you're saying then would be that if it took you less time, it would still be ethical because you stated at the beginning that this was a flat rate. Is that correct?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Now, what about if you stated an hourly rate?
No, then you would have to give some money back.
What if you told a client that it would take 10 hours to do this and it only took you, say, 3 or 4? Would you feel that it's ethical to or unethical to take the whole amount of ten hours?
Well, the thing is, I wouldn't have told him, "Oh, it's going to take 10 hours." That's me,
Mm-hmm.
you
Mm-hmm.
because I know how this works. But I think that if I would have said, "Oh, 10 hours," first of all, that would have been lying,
Mm-hmm.
and then two,
Well, I
because
mean, maybe it wasn't lying. Maybe that at the time, maybe you actually thought that it would take 10 hours.
then I would give some money back in that case.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, I think you answered both of those questions correctly in terms of ethics, in terms of any kind of business ethics. A lot of this, in this situation of price and money, a lot of it is based on what you are initially telling the client from the start. So it's ethical to charge that if it's a flat rate to say, it's going to be $2,800, that's it. And if you can maneuver it cheaper, on your end, it's still ethical to charge $2,800 because the client knew that from the start. Okay, signed a document saying that, I agree to this price. That's why these documents are so important. So important because, you don't want a client saying, hey, you never said that it was going to be that much. So, or I never agreed to that. Okay. But if it's an hourly rate, if you're billing yourself out as an hourly rate and you're telling a client that, I charge, you know, let's say $10 an hour or whatever, or $100 an hour, and your final cost is going to be on how many hours it takes to do this job. Then if and then the client says, well, what do you think? And I say, I don't know, 10 hours, probably at least 10 hours. But somehow by, you know, on my end, I end up being able to do it in 4. then should I charge for the whole 10 hours? Do I tell the client it still took 10 hours, even though I know it only took me 4? Because I told him it was an hourly rate. And the answer to that is, that would be unethical to charge a client for 10 hours because you based it on an hourly rate from the start. So that kind of tells you, and this is not what I really want to talk about necessarily as pricing yet, but that kind of tells you that you don't really want to go to the hourly rate, okay? When a client asks you how much it's going to cost, you don't want to sit there and tell them what your hourly rate is, okay? You don't want to bill a job out that way, because that can get into, you can get into problems. So, like in all businesses do the same thing. You call them up. If I called a plumber to come over to the house to fix my garbage disposal, they would say, $100. I'll look at it, or $78 for a diagnosis. And then usually to swap out a garbage disposal, it's going to be, depending on which one you buy. Let's say you buy the average one, it's going to be $200. So $278, okay? And it'll probably take me, an hour or so to do it. Okay. Now, if it takes them less, or if they get the price, if they get their garbage disposal at a tremendous discount because they're they have connections, they have every right to still charge you $278 because that's what they said it's going to be. Okay. So ethics is just acceptable and, business practices in this industry. And we're going to get into more detail as far as that is concerned. But I want to start with one of the things that, you might not, it might not seem that this falls under ethics, but it certainly does. And that is, you want to first establish credibility. Establishing credibility is ethical. It needs to happen. You, dealing with any vendor, any service, okay, want to know whether that is a honest and reputable service, right? Anybody wants that. Whether you go to an auto mechanic, a plumber, or anything. I always use auto mechanics and plumbers as examples. I don't know why, but right? I mean, you always want to deal with honest and reputable people. So they have to kind of prove that to you, don't they? I mean, don't they have to convince you that they are a honest and reputable service? I mean, they have to me. I mean, I have to see and feel good about this company from the start. I mean, from the minute they walk in my door, is a plumber in a uniform? Does he have a name? Does he have the proper forms? Does he drive up in a truck that has the name of the company on the side of the truck? Okay. And so the same is true with you as a graphic designer. Anyone that's going to use you has to be assured that you are credible and honest, and, they'll probably want experience, but they might, be able to work with you in that sense. Okay. And there might be some trade-offs there in terms of, what you're charging versus your experience level. I mean, if they want super experienced, high-end people, then they need to hire a professional design firm, a reputable design firm that's been in business for 20 or 30 years, and they're going to pay up the nose for that. But they might, kind of sacrifice the experience part. So let's talk about credibility. Let's talk about ways that you can become credible. And I am going to switch my screen here. And I'm actually going to go back to our marketing dynamics and strategies class. And I pulled up this Canvas page here because one of the first assignments I asked you to do is to answer these questions about why you wanted to be a graphic designer, what the purpose of being a graphic, what is the purpose for you, what makes you different than other designers, how do you want to be perceived in the design world. And believe it or not, this establishes your credibility. And what if you're dealing with a client and your client sits down across the way from you and says, you know, Stephen, tell me a little bit about yourself and your company. Aren't you answering these questions here? Aren't you telling them this is me? I've always wanted to be a graphic designer. My sole purpose, of our company. Can't you hear a company saying that in their website, in their mission statement? Okay, we've been in business for X amount of years. We've been, we are reputable designers or, plumbers. We have a unique and, we have a track record. We have testimonials of our customers saying that, right? That all establishes your credibility. So answering a lot of these questions is credibility. Your portfolio is your credibility. What does your portfolio look like? What are you showing them as examples of what you've done in the past? That's why your portfolio is just your vital, that is your credibility. Do you have a website? Do you have, a dedicated website? I mean, to me, any business that I deal with that does not have a website is, kind of like I don't even go there. Again, if I'm hiring a plumber or contractor or whatever, if they don't have a website, it's like, you know. So these are things that I know that they cost money, but that's your credibility. You got to have that stuff. References. Now, who have you done work for? A lot of times references and testimonials exist on your website, right? You have people that you have quotes on your website as, I use so and so and I got great service and they're great, reviews, Yelp reviews of your business. I always go there. The minute I look for a plumber, I look it up, I look on Yelp and I look at the reviews and I see, how many of these are, we had, well, anyway, I won't tell you this nightmare story we have with our air conditioning guy, but we totally got ripped off from this guy. And it was our fault because we didn't do our homework on this guy. Okay, so credibility, references, portfolio, websites. Okay, now here's the biggest one. The biggest way that you can establish credibility is how you present yourself. Now, this is something that I'm just going to be straight up with you guys and say that you need to come off with confidence. You need to, and I don't mean you need to come off saying, that you have all this experience when you don't. Okay, no, that's not what I'm saying. If you don't have experience, that is not your fault. Okay, and you don't have to be ashamed about that. But what you do want to do is present yourself confidently. And so I'm going to switch right now to a short clip, okay? I was watching a video this morning, and I was uber impressed with this, and I'm going to call him a kid, okay? Because when you look at when you look at this person, he looks, and I don't mean anything by that, but he's young, okay? To me, he looks like, and when I say young, I mean just starting out, maybe just graduated from school. In fact, he says he just graduated from school. So, I'm figuring him either in his early 20s, if that. But boy, does this guy exude confidence in his presentation. And I want to show you a little clip of that. I am going to have to stop this recording while I show you this YouTube thing, because I do post my videos on YouTube, and if they see that I'm recording a YouTube video, they are going to cut me off, and Ruben needs to see this video. So, okay, so I'm going to pause this video here.